Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey of My Mother's Son podcast. Today I'm joined with members of the band The Naked Sun, who is, man, I want to say now the third or fourth artist that I've interviewed here from that we met at the Philadelphia Folk Festival. And it's funny because we were actually kind of neighbors at the Folk Festival. Our RV was two spaces from where these guys were camping. And everybody else that I've interviewed from the Folk Festival, I saw them perform. These guys, I hadn't even realized they were performing until like 2 days. We were just talking and chatting, and you fell in love with these guys and was over visiting them every time I took them on a little potty walk. And like the second to last day, like, oh yeah, we performed the other night on such and such stage. And I was like, man, I didn't, they had their guitars and they were singing kind of around the campfire, so to speak, every time we were passing by. So I just thought they were like all the other guys at the festival, just kind of hanging out like us, just with their guitars. And here they were performers. So we didn't actually get to see them perform live, but I've listened to a lot of their music since then, and I'm excited to have you guys on the show. So all you guys, Andrew, Drew, Tim, Tom, thanks for joining me today. And we'll kick it off with Drew, who really is kind of the front man of the Naked Sun. And you know, Drew, just tell me a little bit, um, before we get started, kind of introduce yourself and a little history of the band and where you guys are today, because I know you've gone through quite a few changes, um, as far as membership. But you and Tim have kind of been the main backbone since the start. So just, in your own words, tell us a little bit about where is the Naked Sun today?
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, I'm Drew. I'm I guess I call myself the singer-songwriter of the group. I also sing most of the lead vocals and things like that. Um, we are, so literally half of us are in Cape May right now, Cape May, New Jersey. We're down here writing songs for the new record, which, hopefully will be out eventually. Um, but before the turn of the century, I guess. But yeah, so Tim and I met. I think it was 2010. Prior to that, I had been living in Baltimore and playing in a lot of bands down there. I too am a harmonica player, so I was kind of using that to get in different bands and work with different songwriters and stuff. And then eventually started my own group called City Slides. And then I'm from Philadelphia, so I moved back to Philly in 2010. One of the very first things I did was put an ad in Craigslist looking for a band. And kind of a funny story. I do this. This is very typical of me. I put it in the wrong section. Uh, I don't know where Tim found me, but he ended up finding me probably looking for an instrument. And here's
Used,
this.
it was a used gear section.
I was used gear, which makes sense. Um, and so I don't know. Tim hit me up. The funniest part of this story is that I Tim was probably the third guy to kind of say, "Hey, you want to jam?" The other two guys, I believe, looking back on it, were actually taking me out on dates and not necessarily looking to play music, evidenced by the fact that both quote unquote jams started at a restaurant and ended with them not knowing how to play an instrument.
Oh,
So by the time I met Tim, I was like, I swear, if this guy is just trying to get in my pants. No. So for Tim's date, I went to him and then just showed him some songs. And I was relieved when I saw that he had actual gear in his house. Um, but no, I showed him some of my City Slide songs, and I don't know. It was one of those really kind of lucky, moments where we just kind of clicked. And we're from the same area. We kind of ran peripherally in like the same circles, kind of growing up. And two of us had always been in bands our entire lives. So the fact that you know, I moved to Baltimore and then back to Philly, and then 10, 15 years after, we both started playing music, kind of wound up meeting each other. And then I met Tom through Tim, and then we just kind of formed this band as I don't know, just kind of like based around the songs I was writing at the time, and had some early success, and just really enjoy, I think Tim and I were just we're kind of discoverers of music. We like to I guess we're both kind of rooted in like a roots folky kind of sound, a singer-songwriter sound, but we love just finding new things and then trying those things and saying, oh, are we good at this? Can we kind of make this, can we put our own spin on this? So I think that has what has kind of given us legs as far as the musical relationship has gone, and just kind of continuing to go down different paths sonically and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's been really cool. 11, 12 years now.
Love it.
And I feel like, in a really weird way, sorry, but I feel like we're kind of just starting. I don't know. It's great.
Yeah, it's cool. So, I loved when you told me that you guys are, at a writing retreat right now, working on stuff for the album. Tell me a little bit about that process, the whole writing process. Is just something that's fascinating to me as to how a song comes together. I mean, me being an author, I know how creativity works with me, but it's just me that I'm dealing with. There's nobody else in the room trying to put this together. So,
Yeah.
How does that process work between you guys? Is it like somebody comes up with a melody and then all of a sudden lyrics are put together, or is it just a whole mix? And, you guys can decide who wants to go first in answering this, but just take me through a little bit of that creative process as you guys are, down there in Cape May and really trying to focus on, putting stuff together. Like, how does it come together? I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Why don't you guys take this one? I'll jump in.
So, Dan, the first thing that popped in my mind was we've been playing with each other for so long. I mean, Tom and I went to preschool together, so I mean, we grew up, and there's kind of like that circuit between the two of us, and it always has been there. And meeting Drew, 11 years ago, I think the process has changed. So it's an interesting question because it's always been dynamic for me. I think early on, it was very much Drew had a kind of a formulated song ready to go. Here are the lyrics, here are the chords. It's sort of like a black and white sketch, and we were just there to kind of fill in the color. And that still happens occasionally, but it's been happening less because the more that we've all grown with each other, there's an element of trust and an element of like these writing retreats that really kind of started a year ago. I mean, Drew and I have always kind of done it, but now with Tom and then our drummer Dylan, we've been trying to do these more and more because getting in a room together, it's more exciting that way. And I think because of that level of trust, and it's like, hey, let's play a really terrible sounding chord, or let's play a beautiful sounding chord. Let's see where we can stretch this thing out and see where it goes. And we've been really excited and pleased by the results. And I think it's all part of like when Drew was talking earlier about getting into music. I mean, for me, being in a band, especially with guys that I know and love so much, it's the only place that I've ever felt where, like when you're a little kid exploring in the woods, suburban life takes over. I've got two little ones at home. I mean, we're all busy with these schedules. So being in a band and being able to do this kind of thing, even for a day or two, kind of reinvigorates that sense of wonder and, adventure and where can we go? So that's really I guess that's the process of anything by now. It's just kind of like sitting down in a room, finding a quiet place, carving out a little bit of time. And once that circuit is connected, like the three of us or the four, whoever's in the room together, I don't know, the ideas start flying rapidly. And we've actually fallen in the process of recording that entire process. Because and just listening back to where we started and where we ended up, there's no plan. We just kind of make it happen. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know if you guys ever saw, there's a documentary out there about the studio down in Alabama in Muscle Shoals.
It's a
And
great
yeah, like there's that one scene where, like, one guy just starts playing some chords, and then, the bass player jumps in and the drummer jumps in, and like they're all just like looking at each other, nodding, and like, yeah, this is like, let's keep going. And it's magical. Like, it really is magical when that comes together. And to see that in on film in that documentary was, like, I literally have goosebumps talking about it right now. So it's so cool to see that together. So I think that's really neat that you guys are kind of documenting it as well, to see where that song starts and how it actually finishes. And how important is it to have that chemistry? Like you said, Tim, these are guys who and literally love. You've been around them, and to have that chemistry and be able to feel off of each other. I mean, how important is that to that process?
I mean, it's everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
It's go ahead, Tim.
Like, I was gonna say, I'm sure there are some. I'm sure some people could treat it like a business transaction. Like, here's a chart. This is what we're gonna do. But I mean, for us, I can't imagine writing any other way. I mean, I think we're all pretty comfortable with, like, even if it's a terrible, if we think it's a terrible idea. I mean, there will be some things that Tom will bring to the table, or I'll bring to the table, or Dylan will like mess around piano with a couple of chords, and at first somebody in the room or the person bringing it to the table will be like, I'm not really sure about this, and because of that chemistry, it's like, well, no, it might not go anywhere, and that's okay.
I was about to mention that earlier. There's certain instances where those things will happen organically, and there's that magic of creating something in the moment, and that's actually beautiful. And then there's also those moments. There's just as many, probably more of those moments where we're not doing anything. Right. We're just feeling each other out, and it doesn't produce anything. It doesn't produce a song, right, or even an idea that we use. But what it does produce is, like, it reinforces the connection between us. And I just get a kick, especially as a bassist with our drummer Dylan. There's a lot of moments there. There's a lot of moments with Tim, a lot of moments of harmonies between the three of us, me, Tim, and Drew. So there's a lot of things to pull from and have enjoyment from, just in terms of working together.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. So.
Yeah, and I guess it's just all part of the process. Like I said, there's some stuff that may end up on the floor till it's all said and done, but that's still part of the process of what actually made it to the finished product. And I don't think, a lot of, novice music listeners really understand that process. And that's something that, I have an appreciation of, because I know how hard it is. Like I said to you, Tom, before we started recording, I played bass badly for 18 months of my life. So, like, anybody who can do it, man, like, I just have such admiration for, and just an appreciation of that talent. So I'll kind of ask all three guys this question. I'll start with Drew. How did music become part of your life, and who are some of your biggest musical influences?
Okay. It's interesting now that I have this little nephew and kind of watching him discover just, I guess, sounds and then music, and having these kind of real moments where a song comes on and all his attention and everything gets kind of turned and devoted to this, noise coming out of a speaker or whatever. I can remember very, very clearly a very pivotal moment. I was probably in kindergarten. And I was over a friend's house, and they had just a little play keyboard, and it was time to go. And I was just in the room, just enthralled by this little keyboard, and did not want to leave. And also did not care at all that the other kid was in the room bored to tears because I would not play with them, because I was just obsessed with this keyboard. And very soon after that, and this all credit goes to my mother for this, we were, walking around different homes, looking at people's old pianos. And then very soon after that, after we bought the piano, had it tuned, found an instructor, and then, I was learning an instrument. And I don't really know why or how, but I just kind of have been I've been obsessed with music ever since. I actually quit piano when I was 12, but that's when I picked up a guitar. I heard Nirvana for the first time and just came really, really obsessed with Kurt Cobain and writing songs. And it just hit me at the exact moment it needed to hit me. And just that kind of angsty, angry, grunge Seattle sound. And I was just kind of captured from that moment on. I think I formed my first band in high school. Probably I was 15, probably. And that band led into another band, which led to another band, which, never not been in bands. So here I am now in the Naked Sun, which is by far the most serious and most sustainable project I've ever been in. And if I had to count, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know, 6th or 7th band, probably more than that, but and then so here we are. But yeah, it just started with that kind of, and then along the way, just having these moments where I guess, if you're thinking about it, spiritually or religiously or whatever, it's like those moments where you have that flow moment. All of those moments of my life have been associated with music in some way, shape, or form. So in a way, I'm just kind of chasing the dragon as far as that goes, just trying to recreate or find, or the older I get, I realize you can't create those moments. You can kind of provide the opportunity to maybe feel those moments, but that's kind of what I'm after in this whole thing.
Yeah. And Tim, for you, how did it all start? I'm just going counterclockwise on my screen here. So
it actually started with Tom. I don't, nobody in my family played anything. Tom was in a band with another really good friend of ours, and our one of the Naked Sun's longtime drummer, Dave, and another friend of ours, Kevin. The three of them were in a band, and I guess they wanted another guitar player or something. I might have been in 8th grade, and Dave called me and said, because I was just friends with him, but I didn't do anything, and he was like, "You think you'd like play guitar?" And I was like, I guess so. I hadn't really thought about it. So I had like, I was cutting lawns and I had a birthday. So I had $250 and a buddy of mine, his dad was selling his red Stratocaster. So I bought that, and I didn't take lessons if I just showed up to the garage where they were practicing. It was like, so how's this? What do we do? But I don't know. It just made sense. Like I kind of, I still remember the very first thing we played. It was just like I had my hand on 2 strings and we just vamped on this thing. And to me, I mean, in that moment with these guys, like we made this song. It was just like kind of this like abstract jam. Like, what is this? Like this people can do this. And I mean, from then it was like, okay, I'm gonna go figure out how to take lessons from somebody or where to go. And it was just kind of like going through books, and that's how I got started. So in a weird way, like there wasn't like a band or I think I made fun of you guys, like listening to Pearl Jam and Nirvana. I didn't know. I was like, so I think from there it was just kind of like anything I could do. So my biggest influences, there weren't really bands. It was like Tom, our good friend Steve, another buddy of ours, Leo. Like these guys, I had the good fortune of growing up with like monster musicians. I mean, these guys were like real deal, great chops. I mean, so I had this like very close group of friends that were massively influential. And I to Drew's point, I'm always chasing that feeling. I remember that feeling sitting down with a guitar in my hand with a group of people. I'm like, this is awesome. And then kind of reverse engineering everything as we go along.
Yeah, I love that. And Tom, for you, how did it start for you? And then I'll actually take yours a step further. Like, what was it that, like, did you see something in Tim at that young age that thought like, hey, he could do this too?
Yeah, well, so it's funny. I started music way early, just with the piano, right? I think I got the bug. This kind of the same as what Drew was talking about, where I imagine that for you, Drew, as well, the world just kind of shut out. Like you could shut out the world in front of this piano because you're just, you're making something. And I always found that to be really fun. So, and there was always a piano in the house. My mom was a singer in church, so I used to, sing with her in the car. So I used to listen to her sing harmonies. So I just got this like flavor for harmony, and then I'd sit down at the piano and try to just do whatever. I think piano lessons ruined that for me. I didn't really enjoy the piano lessons.
Me neither.
Yeah, and I think I started guitar even before that and hated that, just because it hurt my fingers. I was too young. Or I say I was too young. I might not have been that young. So there was always music around me. I did have some family members that sang, and they did certain things. Nobody did anything professional that I know of, but I began to sort of every Christmas or New Year's, I would end up at my cousin Larry's house, and pretty much everyone in that house just had musical ability. And I remember that really young, where everyone just sort of sat around and picked up an instrument, and then they would switch. So I was like, what is going on? Like, how did I not know that these people play? And, and not only just that thing, but they play it well. And then they just swapped, and someone else would sit down at the piano and just like rock something out. I'm like, okay, this is cool, because now we're a family and it's like, we're all singing Christmas carols and whatever. But that was just one contingent of the family that did it. And it just sort of fascinated me there. But, so yeah, I got the bug playing piano and drums, or like snare drum in grade school, and trumpet and all that stuff. And then, yeah, when I remember, being in Dave's garage, just sort of like, and I think I was still new to guitar, and not new to music, but new to guitar. And Dave was new to drums, and Tim was new to guitar, and Kev was new to bass, but we just knew we were sort of like channeling that Seattle grunge, thing. At the time, I didn't think of it being like, these guys had these personas that were like, whatever. I just remember the music being sort of powerful and loud and raw to me. And I wanted that, So yeah, I was a guitar player then, mostly. So I think that's where it started for me. But like, just seeing Tim, like that's the thing with this band, and watching Tim blossom as a guitar player has been a privilege of my life, because like, I don't usually get that. I don't know. I feel like that's a unique position that I'm in. I got to see, him start that day one, and now like when he's not here, like it's obvious, like he's a huge part of the Naked Sun sound. And so I just, and I've gotten used to playing with these guys over the years. And I feel fortunate that we're all able to do this, as often as we are able to. So.
Yeah, I love that. And, one of the things I want to ask you guys about, like, I'd mentioned that I do play harmonica, and couple guys I'd coached were in a band, again, very good musicians, and we had them for a fundraiser for the organization I used to run before we started traveling. And they drug me up on stage with them one time to play harmonica. And I was scared out of my wits to go up there at first, because I really didn't think I knew what I was doing. And so I just started playing, and they kind of followed, and that kind of a dopamine rush that took over performing in front of a crowd. And that was really like, you can't describe it unless you experience it. So you guys have experienced that. So as far as the live performance, tell me what that's like, feeding off the crowd, feeding off of each other, because again, we didn't have the opportunity to see you guys perform live at the festival, so I couldn't experience that, seeing guys on stage. But how do you guys just feed off that energy from the crowd and the energy from each other when you're on stage performing live?
Yeah. Um, Playing live is one of my favorite things to do. It's I think like the real kind of deep inner happiness comes from creating the songs, writing them. Recording the songs at times can be a little bit more like work. But playing live for me is fun. Like when you think of like, that's the time I get to have fun, let your hair down and just go. Um, you know, and I think the energy, being a folk fest and having the artist pass and being in front of the stage and looking back at the 10,000 people that, the headliners get to kind of feed off of, like, that's a feeling I hope to experience one day. That just has to feel unbelievable. The tent we're playing in, there's a considerably fewer folks watching us. So the energy I think really is generated on stage. Uh, I'm looking at Dylan and Tim and Tom and Alan I think live Brad really brings a considerable amount of kind of that rock and roll kind of bluesy energy. And so, and then I'm also kind of digging deep in my own well of energy, and I'm trying to put it out there. This is the time I get to kind of show folks like, hey, this is who we are, this is what we do. And I think we're a really good live band. I think, I mean, we've been a band for 11 years now, and all of us have been musicians most of our lives. And I think one thing we do really well is we play live. So I really want people to kind of see us play. And because for me, live music, that's it. That's my church. That's my happy place. That's where I get energy. It's where I feel energized. Um, so I'm trying to kind of recreate those seminal experiences that I've had in my life, and kind of do justice to what we've worked on and done. And I I've spent, I'm not, my ego, my personality, I'm not really a front man. So, there's guys that can get out there and gals that can get out there, and they're just, it just seems so natural to them, and the crowd's loving it, and they have this dialogue and everything. And that's so hard for me to do. So, what is our strength? Well, our strength is just playing live. So my thing is just, I'll say thank you. Hey, this is who we are. And like, let's just play music. Let's let the music speak. And that's kind of, I don't know, that's where I'm at. And my wife will attest, anytime I start talking on stage is bad. And it's time to play the next song. So
I think there's definitely an element, like whenever I think about playing live, you've got to be kind of insane to do it over and over again. I mean, there have been nights where Tom and I are lugging a bass amp 2 flights of steps after trying to find parking in a city. Like the whole process of getting to it, every single time we're all looking at each other like, what are we doing? Like this is insane. And every single time we just start playing music together, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, well it's this is why we're doing it. And I think to what Drew was talking about, like for me, when we're together on stage, and I mean really this iteration of the band, I mean, I think we have 6 with you, Dylan, Brad.
yeah,
We have 6 shows as a full unit.
right.
Like
Yeah.
as a live band, I don't know if we have 6 yet with this particular, but each time that the 6 of us have played together over the last year, I think one of the things that I think that kind of the energy kind of starts with us, like looking at one another and playing the songs and trusting one another, and then it kind of circles out into the audience. And I've watched this happen each time we've played, where you've got to convince your audience that we're here with you and for you, and we hope that whatever we're feeling here kind of disperses out there to all of you. And even though there was at Folk Fest, yeah, it was a small number of people, but holy hell, like the 10 old guys in the back and a few people like weren't up out of their seats, like, waving and, like singing along or just kind of like, just shouting. That felt great. And then
a lot of whistling.
Yeah, a lot of whistling. It's like, hey, cool, that's how you're expressing yourself, then do it. Like there should not be a fourth wall here. Just like, let this happen. And then at the end of the summer, we played in Baltimore in this beautiful venue called the Sky Stage. Fredericksburg.
Frederick.
And I just remember being completely locked in with these guys. Like, I don't remember playing. I remember looking at everybody, but I don't remember the song order or anything like that. But a woman came up to us after and said thank you. She didn't tell us the specifics. She said, I've been having a really rough couple of months, and being able to watch a group of people enjoy what they were doing to that extent, kind of, I forget how she phrased it, but it was along the lines of like, kind of gave me a little hope that I'll find that too. I mean, when we all heard that, like, I'm kind of getting chills thinking about it now. We all shared that. I mean, all of us, when we all heard that, what do you say to that? For me, it was kind of one of those shutdown moments where thank you. Like, I'm so happy we were able to provide that for somebody. So, I mean, to me, that's really what it is. Like, if we keep doing that.
Yeah.
Shit.
It's cool to be able, because I've had those moments so many times in the audience, in a crowd. And it's cool to be able to like give that to people now. I don't know. I don't know if that was ever what I was really after when I started bands, probably in high school, I wanted to be cool or whatever. And it also it's a very creative, it really scratches that creative itch in a very meaningful way. But, to be able to kind of hear that now it's humbling, but it's also like, it's validating, but it's also kind of gives us that energy of like, cool, we get to do this now for a different reason, an important reason. If people are kind of walking away with that feeling, because that feeling will stick with you. I'll go to concerts and I'll carry that feeling I had around for a while, and then that feeling kind of goes into your work life and your relationships, and like so to be able to give that feeling to other people now is incredibly important and meaningful.
And for you, Tom?
Oh man, I was just trying to. I just had like a bunch of different thoughts running through my head, but I wanted to echo what you said about sort of feeding that energy back to a crowd. That's one thing that sort of like recently for me has become a huge part of it, because I know I've performed a lot on a stage in musicals and things like that, where I'm like, it's just me on a stage and a bunch of people. I'm way better in those instances than I am in intimate instances, where if I'm like singing to 3 people, it's the worst. I get a lot of anxiety. And being able to do this with friends, right? My friends, it's like, that's what I'm connected. Apparently Siri thinks we're friends. Being able to do this with my friends is sort of like, it's one of these things where like I may have anxiety and maybe in my head that day, I may be carrying something onto a stage, but then being able to let that go and connect with these guys, and then to be able to reflect that back to the audience, I think in some ways, like, it's showing it's I don't know, even if they, someone comes to a show and they're not quite, ready for that, like they're really not feeling it, they're just there. I just want to be like, hey, this is something that we're having fun with, join us. It's sort of like inviting people to get into that space. And so for me, it's, I don't know, for me, being on a stage is very much like, it's like mini therapy, it's just it's a connection to people and sort of to get out of my own head and just let it happen.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, it's it's one of those things that literally can be life changing for someone. And, they will, perhaps something they hear during your performance triggers a memory, but then it it goes on, because like every time they hear that song in the future, they kind of go back to that same spot, which is what I think some of the magic of music is all about. I mean, I just kind of relate to the quote unquote soundtrack of my own life, and how listening to a song on the radio will take you back to a certain spot, um, and can trigger good memories and bad memories alike, and it's such a beautiful thing. So um, but let's talk about, you guys got a new album coming up. You got an album kickoff release party, technically uh, called, at the World Cafe Live on January 27th, just a couple weeks away here. Um, Tell me a little bit about that. What can we expect from the new album? How can people get tickets for the show? Um, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. This is an interesting album for us because we started recording this album before the pandemic. We were 2019 hitting our stride essentially with this record. We had a pretty clear vision. We had songs. And then, 2020 happened. March, everything shut down. And we were about 3 songs into this new record. And we were just like, oh, no. Okay, I guess we're not making this record. Um, and so uh, I started to learn a little bit of production skill, in like my own like basement studio, and writing songs and kind of doing that, and sending ideas over to Tim. And I guess it was a little more of like an experimental kind of thing that happened. And then once things started to open up, like people were more comfortable letting you into their studios again. um we started to we went into a studio called Gradwell in New Jersey, and we we hired a drummer. And we were like, all right, well, let's, we have these songs, so let's see what happens. Can you do this song? And that's sort of became a thing. We had 2 songs that happened there. And then once everything opened back up again, and it was about a year ago in October, we were offered a show at World Cafe Live downstairs. Tim and I were kind of the last surviving members of the previous lineup of the Naked Sun, and we obviously were not going to turn down the biggest show to date, playing at the big stage, World Cafe Live, that all of our heroes have played on. And it's a part of XPN, the studio in Philly. That's the radio station that is just kind of like the beacon of light and music when it comes to our region and our area. And so we asked Tom, and Tom's always been kind of a unofficial official member of the Naked Sun. Like from the very, very beginning, Tom has been our bass player and our engineer, and he's just always been involved. So we asked Tom, and then we found Dylan, who's our current drummer. And then we had Alan, who has he's been on the record since War with Shadows, our LP that we released in 2018. So that show kind of solidified after playing that show. Dylan was like, I want to be in this band. And Tom was like, this is great. So that show kind of launched us into the song that's coming out tomorrow, Abracadabra. And then we have this other kind of rock and roll Black Sabbath kind of tune called Dead God, which is the closing track. So there's really 3 phases. There's pre-pandemic with Modern Life and Nature's Vanity. And then there's like the pandemic songs, which Water, and then Searchin'. And then there's like the post-pandemic songs, which Abracadabra, Dead God. So it's an interesting record for us because there's I think I counted like 12 different musicians on this record. There's 5 different studios. There's the span of, geez, I think it's like 3 or 4 years that this record, once it's released, this record kind of started in 2019. So it's an interesting record. It has a little bit of our old sound, a little bit of like that kind of experimental, who are we, what's going on sound. And then I think there's a couple things here that are kind of setting us up for the future of the Naked Sun, if you will. Um, and it's called Modern Life, and I love it. I think it's a really good album. It sounds like our previous stuff, but doesn't. It kind of sounds like our present and future self, but doesn't. Um, but I think, I'm really, really happy with how this turned out, and I'm really hoping that people can tune in and listen to it and just hear it, because it's just sorry, my neighbor just came out. It's just a cool record for us. And so yeah, January 27th we'll be at World Cafe Live in Philly. Please come out. We're playing with the Jersey Corn Pickers, and Rebecca Fiorentino is opening the show. And yeah, this is going to be a really fun show for us. We're playing most of the songs off the new record. We can't really play 2 of the songs. One has like a very prominent horn section, and one is like this kind of weird, meandering Eastern Indian kind of sounding song that we just kind of made in the studio and can't really replicate. I mean, I guess we could, but we just, we're gonna let it live on record, and that's kind of it. But yeah, we're gonna be playing. I'm just really excited. I love playing live. I love playing that venue specifically, and I love having a reason such as this record. Because with the pandemic, we didn't know if this was going to happen. We didn't know if we were going to be a band. We didn't know. So the fact that this is finally, happening, getting out into the world, it's really is going to be a party and a celebration. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's cool. And World Cafe Live is an awesome venue.
Yes.
I saw a show there several years ago, and for anybody out there listening who has not been to the World Cafe Live, absolutely get there on January 27th to see these guys. I'm sure you will not be disappointed. How can they get tickets? So obviously at the door, but can they get advance tickets?
Oh,
How's all that
absolutely.
work?
Yeah. I think it's World Cafe Live .com, or you can go to our website, wearethenakedsun.com. Both places will have links to the show, and I think they're $15 pre-sale and 20 at the door. So you're going to save yourself a little money getting them ahead of time. And yeah, that's the easiest way.
Cool. Cool. And how can they get your music in general? Obviously, you mentioned the website,
Right.
and where else are they at? Streaming all
Yeah.
platforms, and how can they
Yep.
get to hold that CD in their hand?
Yeah, we're streaming everywhere. Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon. I don't know. There's so many. Deezer apparently is one. I don't know. I set up distribution, so it goes out to 200 plus streaming services, and we have physical CDs, and I'm really excited about this. I literally saw it last night for the first time. We have a vinyl, a very limited run of vinyl for this new record. So if you go to our Bandcamp website, the Naked Sun one.bandcamp.com, you can pre-order the CD, pre-order the vinyl. But the easiest way to get to any of these things is wearethenakedsun.com, where that'll send you to our Spotify, our Instagram, our Bandcamp, our YouTube, because we have a couple videos up. So that's the easiest place to kind of get to all things the Naked Sun.
Cool. Cool. Before we get to our final question, I know you guys told me at the festival, but tell the listeners, where did the name come from, the Naked Sun? What was the the inspiration behind that?
Yeah, it's the name of an Isaac Asimov science fiction novel. And so when we started the group, naming bands, in my experience, has been so difficult, and I don't know, you never really like the name, or you want to change the name when you get in. So the original name of this band was called Wooder. We played Wooder, which is water, but the colloquial pronunciation here in Philadelphia, Delaware Valley, Wooder. We played one show as Wooder, and no one liked the name. Everyone thought it was ridiculous, so we changed it. It's funny though, because our single that's out right now is called Wooder. So it's out there. But yeah, so we play with Wooder, and then we had a long list. I think I have it somewhere in my email of names, and I threw the title because I always thought it was an interesting title. When I read the book, I love science fiction, so the Naked Sun, it's like, wait, what does that mean? So if you read the book, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but essentially, the plot is folks are told to stay inside because if they walk outside, the naked sun would destroy them. It's the ozone or whatever's been depleted, and the sun will get them and radiate their body, and that'll be the end of them. So the idea of the naked sun is, society, governments, whoever telling you to stay isolated, stay inside. We all kind of just experienced that with the pandemic and everything. So, and then the theme of the book, and I don't want to give too much away, is that maybe not, So yeah, the name comes directly from that novel.
That's cool. That's cool. So, guys, that brings us to our final question, and I'll actually go opposite of how we've been going
Okay.
most of the interview here. So we'll start with Tom, go to Tim, and then Drew to answer this question. As you guys know, the subtitle of the podcast is "Many Little People, Many Little Places," which comes from the opening lyrics of Michael Frante's song "Gloria," which go, "When many little people in many little places do many little things, and the whole world changes." So, Tom, what's one of the little things that you do on a daily basis to make the world a little bit better place?
I feel like it's one of those things that I've been doing for my own life, but that I think that like putting that out into the world is only gonna help is just empathy, right? Exercising, practicing empathy, just I think that's huge for me right now, in my journey, but also is something that I again want to put out into the world, and I think that eventually can help make the world a better place.
Love that. And Tim?
I teach. I'm a teacher. I teach high school English. I've been doing it for 17 years. So I think I calculated, I was actually talking with my students about this right before our winter break. I think at this point I've had about just over 2,000 students. And it's fun. I think the last, and it's counterintuitive, but I think the least important part of my job is delivering instruction. I think the most important part is being there for a lot of these kids. I mean, I teach in Cumberland County. It's the poorest county in New Jersey, and just having these conversations with the kids about having an impact on their county, and like believing that it's a place worth living, and believing that there's a life worth living. I have those conversations more frequently than I have conversations about, well, here's a hyperbole in this passage, and this is what we're going to talk about. So I think that just being involved with students in that way, community service clubs that I work with the kids, I have to believe that at this point, with 2,000 lives kind of being dispersed around, having some impact. I'm not saying I positively impacted all these kids, but I'm saying like having these conversations with one or two kids, if you can catch one or two of them and have them believe that there's something bigger out there, that's I don't know, that's everything for me.
That's a big deal for sure. And Drew, for you?
Well, I'm also a teacher, so everything Tim said, absolutely. But I feel like currently I'm trying to put it into the music. I'm trying to make that a thing that makes other folks who listen to it their day better, their moment better. My hero is Tom Petty, and unfortunately, we lost him a few years ago. But he has an incredible quote about music, and it's something along the lines of, music is the only real magic I've ever experienced in the world, and I think that's incredibly true. Uh, magic, like you were saying, can kind of make you time travel. It takes you literally back to places in your life that were good. It comforts you in moments that are bad, makes you happy, makes you sad. And so, I'm just trying to kind of put into whatever wave form, whatever sound wave that can come out of whatever speaker, and just have that, without getting too hippie here, just having that vibration improve or make someone's moment meaningful. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
If I could like kind of wrap all that up too, so just to kind of pull back to what we were talking about initially. None of this is disconnected, right? Like Tom mentions being empathetic in the world. Um, I've learned a lot from him about that, and I think, and I've learned a lot about music and life with these guys and the conversations we've had. It's not like we just get together and we play music. I mean, last night we hung out, we played guitar for a little bit, and then we sat around and talked for an hour about like, a million different things. Some of them stupid and make no sense whatsoever, that wouldn't be funny to anybody else listening in. To things about like social issues and political issues, and it's one of the things that I show like my sure my students but my sons as well, and taking these experiences we have one another, and thinking about what things that Tom has said or that Drew has said or Dylan or Brad or Alan, and like bringing that to this other life that I have as a father or as a teacher, and kind of letting that all swirl together. We were talking about writing songs earlier and connecting the circuit, and I feel like being in these roles is no different than being on stage. I mean, and Dan, to the point that you made about the song title and the name of your podcast, there's a beauty in that, and there's a power in that, and we might not see it in the moment, but I think the older we all get, the more we can start seeing that those ripples carry pretty far and wide.
It's funny you just used the word ripples, because we were talking about that. I was thinking of the song "Ripple" by the Grateful Dead, and that's it's so relevant with what you guys are doing, from the empathy to the teaching. I coached baseball for 30 years, and one of the beauties of what Sandy and I have been able to do since we've been traveling is, I've literally got players scattered throughout the country, and when we leave here in Beaumont, we're going to Galveston. I'm actually going to connect with one of my old players' parents. And then when we go up to Houston, I'm going to see one of my old players. And, to be able to connect with these guys, years after, they're now adults and have their own careers and their own families, and to be able to connect with them, like, that's so incredibly special. So I hope that, you guys get that at some point, that, it sounds like you've been doing enough that you probably are getting some students coming back and interacting with you at times. And that's really special, because, you're out there and you're planting seeds. You're not sure at times, that I get through to this kid. And some of the kids that you get through are the ones who you thought were totally zoning out on you. And then all of a sudden, here 15, 20 years later, you see them and they're telling you how much you meant in their life. And you see how, good of a father or mother they've become, and, business person or whatever. And so yes, that's pretty special. I love that. So yeah, it is all tied together and all creates those ripple effects for sure. So just one last time, Drew, let shout out to the website where people can find the music, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Cool. Yeah, the Naked Sun new record, Modern Life, out January 27th, streaming everywhere. You can head to wearethenakedsun.com. And please come see us. We're playing January 27th at the World Cafe Live on Walnut Street in Philadelphia. So, yeah, that's it. Wearethenakedsun.com. That'll take you wherever you need to go.
All right. Love it. And for folks out there listening, be sure to check out my other podcasts and blogs at journeymymotherson.com or danclouser.com. While you're there, pick up a copy of my most recent book, The Journey of My Mother's Son, Volume 1. Guys, again, I really appreciate this conversation. I really hate the fact that we missed you live at the festival, but I keep checking the website for next time we're in Pennsylvania, and we will get a show in for sure when we get back up to Pennsylvania. So thanks again for the time. Really appreciate it.
Dan, thank you so much.